So welcome back everybody to the German testing board track at the A4Q testing summit this year from Marrakesh. I'm happy to have Armin Metzger with me. He will talk today on GTB's occupational skill profile for testing in the context of service. So Armin has been a very active member of the German testing board. He's a founding member. He has been active as a president or the chair of our board, but currently he is the executive director of our board and has been around with the ISTQB certified tester now for 20 years. Armin has 30 years of professional experience in development, testing, process improvement. He has been involved with consulting, conceptual work, training, committee work, as well as marketing, especially in the scientific and industrial domains, and therefore especially in safety critical areas. So I'm really happy to have you here, Armin, and we are excited about your talk. So the stage is up to you.
So thanks, Florian, for your introduction, and happy to be here. And also a warm welcome from me. Good afternoon here in Germany. Good morning, good evening in whatever time zone you are currently following. So today I will talk about the occupational skill profile for testing GTB has analyzed and developed. Some of you may ask yourself, occupational skill profile, what is that? We currently only have a German title, that's Berufsbildtester. Literally, that would be translated into job profile or something like that. But that's exactly not the case, because job profile implies something like a profile. What is a tester? What is a test manager? What is a test analyst? And that exactly is what the current version has been updated for not to be, because we wanted to adapt to the agile world and go to profiles, to skills on a whole organization, rather than to describe job profiles you will find in the newspaper or something like that. So to start with that, generally I will frame this with some explanations of, I must say, my personal impression of the current status of testing, together with the agile transformation, and frame this with the results of some of recent surveys about our testing world. And that will be the first part before I will introduce the occupational skill profile, go a little bit into the details of the concept, and hopefully build a bridge then to give a closing motivation for this topic. So first of all, let's begin with the start. First of all, a few words about my impression about the current situation of testing is, and I rely very much on surveys. Here, first of all, some topics mentioned in the World Quality Report. Some of you may know that this is not the latest one. It's the 2021 version. We currently have one, or even a few days ago, two newer versions, but this gives some impression and focuses on the status of skills in testing in the projects. Skills and acceptance for testing. And there are some issues taken from this survey. For example, that budgets in the last 5, or now you must say 7 years, fall down even by 30% for the topic of testing, and that the skills are still not mature enough to support especially those new and hype topics like testing in artificial intelligence, IoT, and things like that. Another survey is the software test survey. This is from 2020, and that's the latest one because GTB, together with the universities of Cologne, Bremerhaven, and the Austrian Testing Board, conduct this survey every 3 or 4 years. So this is the latest one, and this survey also clearly states, let's call it a lack in skills, so a lack in acceptance. Errors are accepted in a wide range. You always must see and consider errors together with the costs to avoid those errors, of course. And also, this survey sees a significant backward step in using test methods, in knowledge of test methods in the testing projects or in testing within agile projects, and also a low degree of automation. And here are some examples for that. That's taken from the software testing survey. So you must read that from right to left. Maybe I should change that one day. So between 2011 and 2020, what you can say use case testing as a testing method is still known, is still used intensively. That's okay. But if you look at the bread and butter stuff, like boundary value analysis, equivalence partitioning, state-based testing, and even exploratory testing with or without a test charter, you can see a huge decrease. So, for example, the equivalence partitioning goes down in usage, goes down, and in knowledge goes down more than a half in the last 9, or if you compare that to nowadays, in the last 11 years. Another example of the same survey is the usage of test types. So I always stated in previous talks that in industry, performance testing is common as a non-functional test type. But this survey tells us another story, and okay, sorry for that. This time you have to read it from left to right. So left 2011 to 2020 on the right. If you look at performance testing, there it goes down also by a factor of 2. And astonishingly, also a topic like, or a test type like security testing. In the current scenario, where I think security testing and the security of our software systems gains much more importance than ever before. And as a third part, we have the impact of the agile transformation, of course, that gives a little bit also of uncertainty in the testing topics. Why? I think one of the major issues is that with the agile transformation, quality assurance is not anymore a topic of an independent organization, is not anymore an independent function within the complete organization, but it's an integral task and integral responsibility of the development teams more than ever before. So this is not taken from a survey. This is taken from a lot of discussions and talks and so on. This often leads to risks, leads to critical deficiencies in the quality of the products, leads to delays. So what the surveys and my private observation tell me is that we have to improve, we have still to improve the acceptance on the one hand, budgets that follows the acceptance on a management level for quality topics for testing, but we also have to improve the systematic skills as a basis for our work as testers. And this should be a little bit the motivation before introducing the occupational skill profile for testing, because we think, and we made this analysis leading to this skill profile, that systematic analysis regarding a sound set of skills that are necessary to conduct testing activities, to manage all those challenges we have seen, is very important, and that an analysis like this, that GTB derived, Testen, as I said, that's the German title, is a valuable asset also to tackle those challenges. So going into detail to provide ideas, provide assistance for the organization, for the development of the testing skills, for the personal development, and also for the development of the organization as a whole. And as a in this sense, as a basis to avoid uncertainty when starting testing, uncertainty when being responsible for testing and the results of your testing, and of course in this sense also to improve the acceptance for the testing activities. So this occupational skill profile for testing is developed by German Testing Board, also in cooperation with our partners, with our partner community. So this is a long-term project. We issued the first version of that in, I think, 2017. That was called exactly Berufsbild Tester in German language. So that means really job profile for a tester. And now we adopted to the more and more agile world, because in the agile world, you rather would not find a job profile of a test manager or a job profile of the test automation engineer or things like that. But you have to deploy all those testing skills over the agile team, over the organization. And that's what we did in the current version of the occupational skill profile in the 2022 version. That's brand new, that was released, I think, 6 weeks ago or something like that. So to give an overview, the skill profile is a task model. It's an open task model that describes positions, responsibilities for those positions, and the competence assigned to those positions, be that professional, so the technical competence, but also social competence. So task competence as a technical competence and responsibility competence as the social competence. A little bit into details then later. And then describes essential positions, meaning essential collections of skills that are temporarily needed to solve tasks. And then we map that into the processes, be that agile, be that classical sequential processes. The whole thing is also framed by standards. Of course, we get our ideas from the standards that already existed for that. Of course, we got our ideas also from 20 years of experience with the ICB certified tester scheme as German testing board. So we have a lot of experience, of course, with what skills are needed to solve what tasks. But we also refer very much to the so-called SPHERE framework. SPHERE is skills framework for the information age, and that's in some domains already a well-established concept, well-established analysis of the skills needed to conduct IT projects, whereas the SPHERE framework is something that spreads over the whole development process of IT. We, of course, concentrate in the testing topics. Also referring, of course, to the standard books that are available, and also on some German standards. I would not go into the details regarding that. So what are the objectives and the basic concept? The occupational skill profile aims to support, on the one hand, individuals, on the other hand, also organizations in positioning themselves in the field of testing. As a reference scheme, we developed with that, we wanted to develop a referent scheme of a clear structure of positions and competencies that are assigned to those positions that enable the analysis, what could be a proper career path and what could be the proper integration of testing skills in the whole organization. And furthermore, of course, we analyzed, that will come later, which training modules. I would not be a German testing board as a member board of ISDUB, of course, from the ISDUB certified tester program, that are essential to help to gain those skills. So coming a little bit to the details of the concept of the occupational profile. So first of all, the basic principle concept. What kind of skills do exist? What knowledge, skills, experience, and so on you have to get a little bit a view on that. Of course, you have to have your technical knowledge, your capabilities with testing, also as a tester, of course, with the domain, with the technique around, and so on. But that's not all. You also have to gain your personality skills, and personality skills means your own person, the skills of your own person. Are you able to be responsible? Can you take over leadership? Things like that. Are you resilient enough? That's also a part of the skill set, of course. And the social competence. Social competence, of course, this means the usual stuff. Are you a team worker? Are you able to communicate in the team, and so on? And bridging that, of course, this scales with the experience and qualification in those three components you have. Of course, one who just started testing will usually have not that much knowledge, capabilities compared to one 30 years in the business. So I now go through the basic concepts and the basic viewpoints of this analysis of a skill profile in an organization necessary for testing. And the first thing here is the positions. So, and I called that roles versus positions. In the previous version of the skill profile, we worked with roles, a test manager, test automation engineer, things like that. And as I said, we changed that to positions. Those positions describe a range of competencies that are needed to perform certain tasks and perform them efficiently. And this is also reflected, or the importance of that is also reflected by a third survey I will show a few more from the survey. This is the GTB survey we conducted 2022. That was a survey to find out what is needed on the training market. But for the scoping of that, we also asked about the organizational approach in software testing, and 60% organized their company, their organization based on competencies, rather than the 48 that are organized on roles. As I said, role, tester, test manager, and so on. So those positions, and that is extremely important to adapt it also to the agile world, they describe temporary tasks. This could be tasks that only long for a sprint, for example. That could be medium term, for example, during a project, or they could also be long term, and then this again transforms into a role across a project in an organization. Long-term positions are then test manager, tester, and so on. And that should help staffing and organizing the teams. Another point of view for us to be taken into account are the, by us, called dimensions. What I mean with dimensions. Dimensions mean what kind of domain addresses those skills. And we classified 4 of them. One is the process, self-explaining. One is the domain, meaning the domain knowledge you have to have. Testing in automotive is different from testing in fintech. The third dimension is the IT structure. That means the test object, the IT that is really in the center of the testing activities. And the fourth one, the technology you use for that. And in this framework, we defined basic positions. Positions I explained previously. So again, I would not be GTB a member of ISTQB. So we defined 3 basic positions. That is the test analysis on the one hand, the core task of the test design. That is much cited in the domain. The second one is test management, also self-explaining, that addresses mainly the processes. And the third one is test engineering, that addresses the IT structure, the whole technical part of the testing tasks. And then you can bring those things together. Those viewpoints, here is an example for those basic positions: test analysis, engineering, and management. And of course, for those 3 positions, the required knowledge, the required skills are different. So of course, all of them have to have high skills. That is indicated with this yellow color here in testing. But the test analyst, of course, has to have high skills in his domain. If it's fintech, if it's automotive, he must know this domain. Whereas the test engineering part has to know a lot about technology. He has to go into the details of this technology when, for example, developing a test automation suite or something like that. And last but not least, the test management basic position, of course, has to have a lot of knowledge about the process he is working in. So, and for those basic positions, we added special positions you all know that there are a lot of topics that require additional and specific skills, specific knowledge in testing, in technological areas, in process areas, and so on. And you know that those topics can increase the efficiency of testing drastically. So as some examples, you, for example, have the special position test strategy that lies a little bit between the domain. Of course, you have to adapt your test strategy on the field of products you are developing, but also on the process. You have to adapt that to the whole process, the development process of the organization. Then you, for example, have the test architecture that lies between the process and the technical stuff. The IT structure should be more within the IT structure, of course. Deep into the IT structure goes the special position of test automation or test environment coordination. With the latter, I mean the setup of all your test environment. And then you, for example, also have the test data management that also addresses very much, again, the domain. If you have fintech, for example, you have other data sets that are used for testing than in automotive. My both examples now. So, and last but not least, all those positions also have levels of responsibility. Make, account, and shape, we have called them, from working according to instructions. Make over account, the independent work based on methods that you have learned. Apply those methods into the responsibility of shaping, the leading responsibility, where you maybe adapt the methods, where you define new methods, where you set stimuli, where you influence and inspire. And that all together we combined with reference descriptions for the matrix of all those positions, qualifications, tasks, and their levels of responsibility to describe what skill set has to be there on a certain combination of those viewpoints for the test analysis, test management, and so on. So, last but not least, a late motivation again. Why is this important? To close the bridge, so to say. So we see that in, again, I will rely on a survey. We see that on the surveys. In this case, this is the almost latest version of the World Quality Report, the 21-22 version. And there are a few statements I've taken out of that that support what we are doing here. So it said that the most important factor for the project success that is meant here is to have enough staff, okay, but also with the right skills. And we need to develop new skills, and we also need to develop existing skills. And those surveys also are, this survey is focusing on testing. Quality assurance is a skill that also has to be within the agile team, because agile teams more and more are responsible for the quality, for the testing, compared to 10 or 20 years ago. And this survey even says that the term of software development engineers in tests. So development engineers that are also testing by a large extent is a new normal and is used widely currently, especially, of course, in the agile projects. Mapping this to the ISTQB, you see the same structure as I showed you in the occupational skill profile. We have, first of all, the dimensions and the basic positions, test management, test analysis, and test engineering that address also different dimensions, test management, more or less the process, test analysis, the domain, the requirements, and test engineering, the IT technology. So the mapping here is absolutely fine. And we have this in different responsibility levels, so to say. Here in ISTQB, that's the skill level, but also that corresponds foundation, advanced, and expert. Most of you will know this portfolio. And we have the different courses then that address this mapping. For example, in the core for the basic methodical skills, and in the agile modules from ISTQB. And for those additional positions, we also have some topics that are addressed in those specialist courses. So, and to close that, are those topics relevant? Are those topics all right? I would say the topics are all right. That's another result of our survey that clearly states that if asked which topics in testing, which skills are found relevant and important, testing foundations, especially also for agile projects, but also test management, test analysis, and those special topics, performance testing, security testing, and so on, have a large relevance in the organizations. So another fact from this survey shows and supports what I said, that not only testers do the testing, but if you look at that, that's the current situation. Also developers in the same amount, here even a little bit larger, test occasionally and test mainly. And this will also, that's the prediction of this survey or of the respondents of this survey, will also not change in the future. The opposite will even spread a little bit. And as a third, let's say, a closing motivation. So this diagram, this result of the survey, where the question was if qualification and certification and training is relevant, shows, if you look at this gray line here, that there is a straight correspondence between the blue and orange marks here indicate the competence with and without qualification. Here the blue mark with qualification, and the gray line indicates the competence, and there's a correspondence between qualification and how competent the people are seen. So qualification and training still offers added value and is seen as a measure of enhancing the quality. So coming to a conclusion, in order to have time for 2 or 3 questions. So I think we have seen that the Whereas the challenges, of course, I didn't mention that in testing, in technology as a whole, are growing and growing like they always do. The acceptance for testing and systematic skills rather have declined in the recent 10 years. But on the other hand, it is important to have the right stuff with the proper skills more than ever. So the occupational skill profile for us is really a helpful measure to assist individuals, but also organizations in this big challenge to having the right skills at the right time. Thanks.
So thank you very much, Armin, for this interesting talk. First question that came into my mind, but I think you already answered it. So you started with the World Quality Report 2021, and just recently the new version, the World Quality Report 21-22, was released. So if I got you right, there's not an all clear yet about your concerns you're having about the systematic or the lack of systematic approaches.
Yeah, as I understood this latest survey, right? You are right. So the latest survey more goes into those details like DevOps that is applied and so on, all those technical topics that help, but still claims that we are not at the finishing line so far.
Okay. So in the certified tester syllabus so far, we have role-based models, or stick to that. So we have tester and test manager basically in the foundation level. Later we go to different roles. So do you think ICTQB certified tester schemes should also evolve into this direction with the skill-based approach rather than a role-based approach?
Only one word, definitely.
Yes. Okay. I think that what you just presented is really a great asset of the work of the German testing board we've seen here. So apparently the board is not working solely on the ICTQB certified tester scheme itself, but also on topics that are apparently complementary or supportive to the scheme. Is that right? And what's the motivation behind that? And do we have other examples like own syllabi or something like that?
Okay, I think there you issue a few questions in one. The first I understand is a little bit about could this analysis, could this concept be spread a little bit? And from my point of view, yes, it should. I've shown you, I've not gone into detail so much that we strongly also refer to some German initiatives, but that could not be all. So it would be very valuable to extend that in a larger framework. And the other question, own developments, that's a good question for me, of course, because one thing I didn't show into detail, if I just go back, there is some workshop here above me, I think. I hope it's not disturbing that much. You here see the software development engineer in test. And that's an, let's say, piloting and asset that we recently developed exactly to address this topic, that we should go a little bit more into the world of the agile people and showing them the set of methods they need as a basic set.
So this more focuses developers that also have to take activities in testing. So how is that syllabus structured, or what is so special about it?
Yeah, we left a little bit those topics that are presumably not so relevant for a developer in an agile team that is has to perform testing tasks, so the test management aspect and so on. Of course, he or she has to know a little bit about it, but we concentrated on the methods of testing. We concentrated on the methods of developing the tests, equivalence, partitioning, and so on. All the things you can start if you start from scratch. You really have a basis to go into some systematic for your testing, and we added there also a hands-on approach, a practical approach. So this is combined with deriving at the end, deriving test automation, just to make it a little bit, also to make it a little bit more attractive for a developer.
Okay, cool. That's very interesting. So thank you very much. So the last comment here is not a question, but it's just a greeting from Luis from Mexico, who has been attending apparently this talk. So greetings back to Mexico. So thank you very much, Armin, for this interesting talk here in our GTB track today. So greetings back to Germany, and we'll be back here in 18 minutes with our fourth and last talk today by Nils Röttger on AI and testing. So stay tuned and see you in a bit. Okay. Thank you very much. And
thanks for having me, and goodbye.
Bye.